Alright, what's up guys, this is Heat. I wanted to do a build guide video today on my Ice Crash FACEBREAKERS build that I used in the Awakening beta. And this build was used in the pre-divination patch, so the patch right before they introduced the divination cards. But I feel like it's still going to be pretty strong even when they officially release Content 2.0. I'm going to link in the description the passive tree so you guys can take a look at that, and I'm also going to link a Google Sheets document that I put together for this build so you can take a look at a more in-depth look at my gear and what this character is running. One thing to note about this video is I was at the time I recorded this, I was only able to run level 71 maps as a level 85 character. Because map drops were nerfed, so it was difficult to sustain a high pool of maps. But I can guarantee you that this build clears high-level content 76 to 78 maps really easily because I was doing them. I just didn't record any at that point in time, but that's just something to note. So at its heart, this build utilizes three unique pieces: Meganord's belt, the Abyssus helm, and the FACEBREAKERS gloves to do massive damage with Ice Crash. And Ice Crash is an AoE skill, as you can see in the video, and I basically use it for everything, including AoE packs and single target, because it is that good. In terms of gameplay mechanics, how this build works is you self-cast Enduring Cry for increased damage reduction, and then I have a 4-link set up specifically to proc Fortify, and Fortify reduces incoming damage by all damage by 20%, I believe it is. I think they nerfed it from 25 to 20%, and then I just use the main Ice Crash skill to clear everything. So let's take a look at this character's gear. The first unique piece right here is Meganord's belt, and the reason this belt is really good is because of the way FACEBREAKERS works. The way you scale damage with FACEBREAKERS is you need flat physical damage to your attacks on your gear. So for example, rings, amulets, and anywhere you can get flat fizz, and this belt just happens to give you flat physical. Now the other things that are good about this belt is the increased maximum life, and also the 25% increased Flask life recovery rate. That's pretty nice. Everything else is pretty lackster, but the strength is pretty good if you need that stat for your build. So let's take a look at the unique gloves that make this build possible, FACEBREAKERS. These gloves gives you 780% more unarmed physical damage. You can get up to a maximum of 800. I wasn't able to get a perfect pair, but 780 is pretty good. And again, you need to be able to have flat physical damage in order to scale the unarmed damage. You can also scale damage on a tree only through things that say physical damage or melee physical damage. Anything else that is weapon specific will not work. These gloves also have 60% increased global crit strike multiplier, but that's useless because you can't crit while unarmed, and also because I took Resolute Technique in the tree. Alright, so let's take a look at the moneymaker, the Abyssus, right? And the reason that I call this the moneymaker is because it gives you a lot of DPS. I mean, it's absolutely insane. 40 to 60 flat physical, synergizes really well with FACEBREAKERS, and your DPS will go crazy. It also has 25 to all attributes, which is always nice. And then you have increased crit multiplier, which you can't make use of, again, because this is an unarmed build. And it also has pretty decent armor for a helm, about 700, which is not bad to help reduce, to mitigate physical damage. The only downside to this is that it has increased physical damage taken. 48% is actually a lot, and when you do high-level maps with increased monster damage or 100% extra damage as fire, this stacks and it hurts really bad. But a good alternative if you don't want to use Abyssus is you can also use Bringer of the Rain and have a little bit more defensive utility with that unique. So in terms of jewelry, what you want is Flat Fizz, Life, Resistances, and Mana Leech. Now I want to focus on this unique chest piece because this is really important. So the reason I went with Cloak of Flame is because it helps mitigate some of the increased damage taken that you'll get from wearing Abysses. And the way it does this is basically it converts 20% of physical damage taken as fire damage. And this acts as a mini lightning coil. Now ideally you would want to wear a lightning coil because lightning coil gives you 30%. And the only difference is 30% taken as lightning damage as opposed to fire damage, so you get more mitigation. However, in the beta league, I didn't really, trading is extremely limited, and I didn't get the opportunity to purchase the chest piece even though I had the currency. Some of the benefits of Cloak is obviously you get a lot of fire res, and then everything else is pretty negligible. In terms of my other gear, it's pretty standard fare, Life, Resistances, and again the importance of flat physical damage, even on the amulet, and then I rolled it on this particular shield as well, and the shield basically has Life, Resistances, and Flat Fizz. You don't need to roll Flat Fizz, but it's a nice bonus. The boots are pretty good, 30% movement speed, which is important for this build. In terms of flasks, I have your typical seething flask, and I actually like to use an eternal with increased recovery speed for stuff like chaos damage. Again, this is pretty standard Quicksilver. Granite with increased armor is really good, and then this is the ruby flask I was using at that particular time. So how good is this build? I feel like this build is actually really strong. It has really good defense, and it has really fast clear speed because you're just crushing through content. I started this particular wipe about a week and a half late, and I was able to push close into the top 10 ladder. I was actually at level 90 hardcore, and I was ranked 16 when this character ripped. But that tells you a little bit about how fast it clears and how efficient it is at crushing enemies. So I want to show you 3 sets of DPS numbers here. So the first one is 42,000, and this is with Fire Golem, Hatred, and Herald of Vash. 56,000 is with 4 Frenzy charges, and lastly 67,000 is with Taste of Hate. Now you don't need Taste of Hate, I just got lucky and got it as a drop. And this is in the 5 link, and the link is Ice Crash, Faster Attacks, Melee Fizz, Conk Effect, and Increased AoE. So this build utilizes 6 endurance charges and 4 frenzy charges. The 6 endurance charges help with physical mitigation, and they also give you a pretty nice life regen. The reason I went with frenzy charges is because it gives you increased attack speed, and because newly introduced, there's a new mechanic where per frenzy charge you also get more damage. This mechanic is absolutely insane and is pretty good in my opinion for any build if you can sustain frenzy charges. The way I do sustain frenzy charges with this build is I use Blood Rage, and Blood Rage gives you a frenzy charge per enemy killed, and it also resets the counter. So basically you can have frenzy charges continuously as long as you're killing things. One thing to note about Ice Crash is that you can't use multi-strike, and the skill itself does carry a pretty steep less attack speed penalty, therefore you'll need to use something like faster attacks in order for you to be able to clear efficiently, or else you will just be too slow. Alright, so let's take a look at my tree. Pretty standard stuff at the beginning. I went through the physical damage portion of the Shadow, then I picked up the Frenzy Charge and Blood Drinker. Blood Drinker is actually really good because it helps with survivability because you are leeching back life. One thing I did want to do with this tree is hit as many jewel slots as I could that only required 2 investment points, and I was able to hit 5. Now the jewel slots that you are seeing here or the jewels that you are seeing here aren't up to date. I have different jewels that I was using at level 90. This is an earlier level character, so check the description for the guide so you can see all my current gear and jewels. So yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to do was pick up all the increased AoE that I could on the tree, because again, Ice Crash is AoE based, and the more AoE you have, it kind of acts as an indirect increase to your DPS, because you have more spread and you can attack more enemies in an AoE. The other thing that I did pick up that was notable was Resolute Technique, and this is important because you can't crit and you wanted to be able to have 100% accuracy, and when I picked that up, my DPS went up to something like 16,000, which is insane. And then I picked up this last jewel socket and that endurance charge, and that is basically the skill tree. Alright guys, so that's the Ice Crash FACEBREAKERS build as a shadow. Hardcore viable, specifically made for hardcore. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.